Hello, hello, warm up time. And as we warm up before we start,
We will now have to stream to tag our own stuff for
yes.
self-promotion purposes.
YouTube is running. And Pico's there. Hey, Pico.
Hello.
Facebook is running. No one yet, but I shall share. Done as now, and let's grab some cows and cowboys.
We're just spamming links. One moment.
Urim is with us. Hey, Urim.
You.
Jay is with us. Andre is with us. Ooh, lots of people today. That's good. That's good. So just before we started the show, we were watching another episode of Unsolved Mysteries. And boy, oh boy, it really makes me think it was a spy. That story felt like a spy. It was hard to see it as anything but a spy.
Aliens is the other answer to things. Aliens.
Oh, it's so far away. There.
Yeah, we just watched the Oslo one also, Andre. So, spoiler alert, it's not solved. Hence the show. Oh my gosh, the president has a thing. Well, I'm sure you're better off here watching this for 30 minutes than that. So you can always wait for the transcripts from the media.
And he'd probably be spending the first 30 minutes complaining.
That is the speech. That's the whole thing. His last few have been been talking about the war on drugs.
And yes, our shirts tonight are
Tarde shirts.
Tarde shirts, which have nothing to do with our topic.
Yeah, we don't have cowboy shirts. Nor do we have train shirts.
Unless you consider there were episodes of Doctor Who that concern the West.
That is fair. Pico imagines there's no sheep here. Yes, there is no sheep involved in the Great Western Trail. It's only cows.
Mm-hmm.
Cow, 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 cow.
But I guess, do you want to wait 2 more minutes or do you want to start?
We can wait 2 more minutes because, yeah, we'll just give the president some space to get his stuff warmed up.
I love how the image shows him with that gold eagle.
Yeah, I don't know why. That's why I think MLQ3 likes to call him like the golden great eagle father, something like that. Hiya.
Then all these promises, but we still haven't seen someone ride this jet ski.
Andre already asking, is there a malnourished cow? No, we only have a skinny sheep.
Well, one can say some of them are malnourished. Because there are those cows. There are those cows we hate whenever we reach Kansas.
Judgy cow. Yeah, these are the nicer paid cows. Because look at that West Highland. Ooh, so furry.
Okay, now I missed this game. Just fixing the cards and I
I'm
missed
sorry, we haven't played in a while.
There are more than just brown cows, to be honest. But yeah, it's 9:05 and now is a good time to start. The duck is ready. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. We talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, now is the best time to do so. We are 61 episodes in. And oh boy, that's a lot of episodes for a show that just started barely 2 months ago. That's even more. It's less than 2 months.
We still don't have a sponsor.
We don't think we'll have one anytime soon.
Hence, our production value has not changed, but we are still awesome.
And in many ways, this show is about us sharing what we love and what we find stuff that we celebrate. And it's not really, it's not a review show. It's not a how to play show. It's not a unboxing show. Even if sometimes we'll do a little bit of those.
We've only unboxed once. Yeah. And it's also just our way to connect to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And we appreciate everyone who regularly joins the streams, or at least tries to. We know everybody can get busy, but hey, we appreciate the company.
Oh my God, Andre, don't start.
So tonight we're talking about Great Western Trail, which is wow, Toby kept the plastic. No, he bought it secondhand, and the person who sold it to him kept the plastic. So, Toby, how do we describe Great Western Trail?
So Great Western Trail, and I doubt you can see me right now.
You can still.
Okay, Great Western Trail is a 2 to 4 strategic game that deals with building strategic outposts as you navigate the dangers of moving your cattle to Kansas City for shipment to different cities. It's by Alexander.
It's so weird to call them strategic outposts. But
yeah,
okay,
but that's
right.
what the board game says. It's by Alexander Pfister. I hope I said that right. It seems to be
There's a P, there's an F. They are together.
It's very highly rated on Board Game Geek, actually ranking 9 in all strategy games and 10 overall the games. And if I remember correctly, my numbers, there are at least 17,000 different board games that are ranked on Board Game Geek.
It's a good game, guys.
So imagine this being ranked 10. So the game has a mix of the different elements that we love. It has deck building. It has...
even better, it has cow deck building.
It has hand management. It has point-to-point movement, set collection. There's a variable setup, so every time you play, it's a little bit different.
Yes, that's optional.
And even the variable setup is not completely random. You could have a setup that's in the way you want, or you could have a completely random setup.
Yes.
And then lastly, it's got cows, it's got cowboys, it's got engineers, and it's got carpenters.
Guys, it got cows. It got cows, it's got cows. There was this time I played this cow clicker game for a long time, and then that's all I would just say. It's just cow, 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 cow.
So the Great Western Trail, as always, we try to show the board. It is one of those games that has a big board. Admittedly, it is also one of those games that I guess you could say you could feel the date.
What do you mean?
Because it, as you can see,
basically you are trying to drive your cattle from the start point all the way to Kansas City. Kansas City, because apparently that's where we sell cows. And I don't think it's that dated a design. I do feel like there was a good attempt to like put a lot of information on the board.
yes.
But at the same time, it also fell into the trap of we're going to make our own symbols that mean stuff. And until you memorize what these symbols mean, the board is not as useful as it could be.
But unlike most games, the moment you get what the symbols are,
Yes.
it's hard to forget. It's
Yes.
hard to need to refer to the manual. In fact, we only really refer to the manual now whenever we use the new buildings, which we haven't touched on. But for anything we already have, we pretty much remember it. So as you can see here in the top, there's a bunch of little flag-like areas, which are the different cities you can ship the cows toward. You can ship the cows toward.
And you ship them by train, not by boat.
You see the track here in the top, which follows the cities. And if you actually go all the way, sorry, I might hit your face. The track continues all the way down to the rest of the board. That track is one of the areas which you navigate through the game. But the main area you navigate is that large patch of area with all those empty houses.
Following the white lines, yes.
And the reason for those empty houses is because you build buildings there, whether it's the already built neutral buildings or the buildings per player.
Apparently outposts. Then and so
Just so that I can show it closer.
so how do we talk about actions here? Because they depend on the neutral buildings, which can be placed in a certain arrangement or can be placed randomly,
Mhm.
depending. Typically, for example, the first building allows you to hire workers.
Mhm.
And there are three types of workers which kind of connect to different possible strategies for playing the game.
That's a good time to show the player board.
Yeah, we can show the player board because it also shows the default people. So there are cowboys who generally help you get more cows. There are carpenters who help you build buildings. And there are engineers who help you drive
Move
the
the train,
train and
yes.
capture train stations.
So as you can see, in addition, we have the ribbon area here, which allows you to temporarily boost how much you'll get.
Because
for
you
selling your
have
cows.
pedigree cows.
And then you have all these other areas with the yellow circles. Now take note that those yellow circles are only yellow because this example we're showing is
It's for the yellow player.
Yes. And what's interesting is the game comes with a set of wooden meeples. You of course have your cowboy.
Cowboy, 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 who
You
looks for
have
cow, cow, cow.
your train.
It's very rare that we have a wooden train.
And then you have your wooden discs. And the discs are placed to cover the spots that have the yellow discs. Because as you remove them through play, you make your moves more awesome.
You unlock abilities on the player board. And then we're not going to go into all the symbols, but just easiest example is like
Size.
this one allows you more movement for your cowboy once you unlock them. And this allows you to have more cards in your hand. And given there is a deck building element to this game,
More cards is always good.
more cards in hand is great.
Part of the awesome spot is how they try to make everything functionally helping you remember things. So if you look here in the top of the board, this actually already tells you the flow of a player sequence. You have your first you must move, which is 3 steps, possibly up to 5 steps.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you cross any of these hand symbols, you must pay money. Then you can then choose to activate neutral buildings.
It's very pander.
Activate the building you've chosen, or reach Kansas City, which then goes through these numbers.
It has its own
steps.
steps in Kansas City.
And those steps are visible on the board. What else? What else is pretty awesome about this player board?
There's a lot of bonuses that's over here that unlock once you place people on the board.
Mhm.
But because, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, but there's a mechanic where if you get a train station or whatever station, you have to put a person on the spot where you see the clock. So you lose people. So if you put someone there again where there is a bonus, you get the bonus again.
Mhm.
Hence the engineer spot. You'll notice there's a bonus on every engineer spot at the bottom because every time then it encourages you that engineers are the ones you should probably put in stations
Mhm.
because you can repeat bonuses.
So as we mentioned as well, the map is filled with those holes for houses because that's where buildings come in. So these are some of the sample build. I'm rotating the
You
wrong
put
one.
them at the right the same orientation, just the weird orientation.
So you have the sample buildings, which again follow the approach of iconography in order to understand things.
It'll make sense in the long run.
But buildings are always double-sided, and you only get to play with one of the sides in each game.
And all players must have the same set of buildings. So you can play building 1A, building 2B, building 3B, building 4C.
The start,
By A,
the
sorry.
base game came with 10 buildings, which basically tells you that's 20 different buildings to choose from when you play.
Yes.
And I will not do the math on how many combinations of different games you can have with those 20 buildings alone. Not counting the combinations
2 to
added
the 10th power.
from neutral buildings.
Okay.
The expansions, we'll get to the expansions later, because first, let's talk about the cows.
Cow, 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 cow,
So
cow.
would you like to tell us about the cow?
Because it's a deck building game, you start with a hand of basic cows, and your starting hand size is, 5 or 4?
Standing hand size?
Starting is 4?
4.
You start with 4 cards in hand. And the cards in your hand represent the cows you are driving all the way to Kansas City. Oi, Rehan, hello. wow, thanks for joining. So uh, naturally, then, if you get to carry more cards in hand, that means you have more cows. The tricky thing about Kansas City is that when you sell the cows, you can only sell unique cows. And naturally, your starting deck has a lot of repeat cows.
So if let's say you
Greens,
reach
blacks, whites.
so if you reach Kansas City with these 4 cows, Kansas will only buy 3.
Yes.
Because this one is redundant to that green cow. They don't want to buy copies. And that's where a large part of the game becomes interesting. It's about manipulating your hand while you go through the stages, because some buildings allow you to sell cows or to um, get rid of cows for certain bonuses.
Yes. So and then of course there is the option to buy more cows, and you'll know see there are different colors, and each color represents a new type of cow, which increases the likelihood that you will have unique cows when you get to Kansas City. Hooray, unique cows!
Now there's a lot more intricacies to the game, a lot more little subsystems. But I think
Yes.
the last one we shall mention before we go to expansion and then our thoughts about the game as a whole is this side of the board.
Which looks oddly empty for now because you put many little things on it. Toby has an example of it's the
all these
workers.
tiles.
Yeah, the cowboys, the carpenters, the engineers.
And in addition to those 3, you also have the hazards
Ah, yes.
and the Native Americans. Because
Indians.
in this game, when those Indians are drawn, they're placed in the small camp here, and you can interact with them. In some cases, they allow you to earn money. In some cases, they force you to spend money. But ultimately, this area dictates the purchase prices for the different people that you can buy. Things are presented here beforehand, so there's a bit of actual foresight in what can come in the later stages.
Yes.
And most importantly, this side triggers when new cows will arrive, which is the
Cow.
the symbol there, and the end of the game.
It's a tracker.
The,
Yeah,
mo-
it's a timer.
the moment someone pushes a certain token out of the board, it's sudden death. The game has reached its last round, and you better hope you got the cows you wanted.
Well, yeah, or points because you'll have a limited number of moves. So things to note about Great Western Trail, which are pretty cool, is the fact that since you're populating the board spaces with your respective buildings,
Mhm.
if it's your building, you get to use the building and have those bonuses.
When you land on them.
If it's not your building, you can do other actions, but sometimes opponents' buildings have the hand symbol so that they get to collect money from you, which is a bit annoying. And therefore, initially, you only have maybe 5 or 6 action spots on the board, and then later on, it just increases. And then suddenly, how many steps your cowboy can take becomes all the more important because you might not reach the spots you want to get to. And especially when that end of game happens, and then it's like, oh crap, how far can I go? What can I do in this last move that will get me points? I'll just go buy cows, that
Now-
sort of thing.
Now, the game is not a worker placement game. So
It feels like it, but it's not.
So there's always that feeling of, the standards of worker placement wherein you're not allowed to go on a spot where someone already is.
But that's not the case.
That's not the case here. And if you are a fan of worker placement games, it's actually quite possible you'll keep thinking that way while playing. I know I sometimes think, oh, I can't go there because you're there already. And it's a funny way that you handicap yourself. But then, even with this game being that interesting and that awesome, the fact that there are so many possible combo moves you can build, depending on the buildings you have, the station bonuses you've collected.
And even the gold cards you collect.
Yes, because the game includes goals, both goals that you have at the start of the game,
The
And-
basic whatever goals.
and goals that you try to accomplish for the rest of the game. And even if you failed to use these gold cards for the goals themselves, you can actually still trigger them for certain bonus abilities one time, but then that commits you to fulfilling the goal in the end, because if you don't, you'll suffer penalty points. Now, just like our love for the village, we liked how this expansion added a new level of fun to the game. We have Rails of the North.
Rails to the north.
Yeah.
Yay. So as the name of the expansion implies, it adds stuff to the top of the board. Toby is unfolding very carefully.
Yes.
Please don't destroy the board. Okay.
Ah!
This box is empty.
so,
So it adds this whole new city layout thing. You're still shipping to the same normal cities
Mhm.
as before, but you kind of stack on top. Yeah. So that there's more stuff going on.
Oh, I think
It's not a perfect. Yeah, that one. Yeah. So it connects. It connects sort of. Not like super connects, but it connects enough.
Mhm.
Okay. Then we can put this down probably.
So what does this game add? This game adds a few new wooden pieces, which are the houses. So those who are fans of Concordia will find this familiar. So
It's your standard house.
So what are the houses for? The houses are placed in these spots. And you'll notice there's a lot of those white square spots where you can put the houses. The reason you're able to put them there is because by fulfilling locations where the houses are, you then have access to other point spaces like these, or you get instant bonuses like those. But part of the challenge is the fact that you're still tied to the distance of how far you're able to send cows in the line, which makes this, in its own way,
It's a weird mini game.
it's a weird mini game of blocking and snagging things from each other, because in that part of the game, although that was present from the station houses, being the first can be huge. Being the first one to grab that reward, being the first one to grab that position.
And then depending on the colors of the areas that you place stuff on, there
Mhm.
may be goals tied to it that you may want to have like one house in each colored area, or you want to have everyone in one area. You may want a certain city because of points.
Mhm.
You may want there's a lot of things going on. So it's pretty cool. It's a little devious trying to figure out what you want to do,
Mhm.
but we like playing with the trains up there. AA. My also remark, cowboy steps, who I can't go anywhere, I don't need to pay. Yeah, because once there's enough hazards and enemy buildings in the way, you're probably gonna have to pay someone sooner or later. Thankfully, you pay before you earn any money. They're like Machikoro. So if you have no money, you don't have
really
to
lose
pay.
anything.
Yeah.
Any more comments that are of interest?
So that was Pico asking also, what happens if you can't pay? Yeah, if you can't pay, you don't. So if you have zero money, you don't have to.
And in as much as that might feel like you get to one up the person who built that building, you'll realize it's a very short-lived sense of satisfaction, because in the end, you still have no money.
Yeah. And then someone's bound to, need to pay something else again. So maybe they'll pay you. So
Mhm.
it's okay.
I saw Adrian had a statement.
I think he remarked on cow. The player board he said was similar to the player board in Scythe. Yes, in that sense that there's all this stuff covering up bonuses, and then as you place the tokens on the board, you unlock new abilities. Yes, it's very much like Scythe.
And he mentioned cow deck building, LOL. So
Cow deck building is very important. I can't help. As much as there are many strategies in Great Western Trail, personally, I keep wanting to collect cows.
Mhm.
I can't get away from collecting cows, and to the point of distraction. It's like airports in suburbia. So I don't know.
And I think that's one of the first things that we found quite charming about this game. The fact that there are so many ways you can try to win. You can actually win this game by not really buying that many cows and just focusing on buildings.
Yeah, which is tricky, but it's possible.
We've seen a player, and of course this is Flip, who won once he had a certain number of cows and he just kept shipping them over and over again. He didn't bother anymore building anything. He just wanted to make sure that his train kept moving back and forth.
Yes.
We've seen combos wherein it's all about the
Mitch,
the mission
welcome to the
cards.
stream.
We've seen people who barely have built buildings, but then they found the best prized cows. So even if they weren't making that much money each turn,
Those number 5 cows.
they had so many cows that were worth the huge points.
There are people who play the goals really well. And the goals can be tied to cows that you have, or this is a hard way to demo, or cities that you have claimed, cows and teepees of Native Americans, all this stuff. So there's like all these possible bonuses from goals, and playing the goal triggers a one-time bonus in the corner So that it offers a whole world of strategy in itself.
It sort of nudges you to risk trying for the goal anyway because you need that special move. Sometimes you need that extra step.
You just have to remember that once you're committed to a goal, if you fail, there's a penalty. So this one's worth 5 points, or you lose 2 points at the end of the game if it's unfulfilled. So be careful.
What else? So other than the fact there's many paths to strategy and victory.
I never thought I'd get into cows. I mean, like, and no, and this is the thing about board games, right? There are board games that explore things just to a very deep level. Hence, like our previous video where we talked about lowlands, where it's about raising sheep, and I did not think I needed to know this much about raising sheep in potential flood areas. It's like games like viticulture, which is all about winemaking, or parfum, which is about making perfume. So there's like, it's funny how these games like super explore a particular thing and like break down the steps of production in real life and then result in very interesting games. And this game is just all about driving cattle across the US and getting them to a place where you can sell them and maximizing trains because it's cowboy time. So
the game is awesome in giving you that incremental feeling of immediate gratification whenever you are able to remove one of the discs from your board.
Yes.
Because it's that feeling of, I leveled up. I have a new move. I can do this new thing.
I'm always rushing to expand my hand size. And you have to pay to unlock those slots, but I don't care because it's worth it.
And then the game is also smart in that, one, it doesn't believe in missed turns. So, like mentioned earlier, if you can't pay the hand, you still get to move, you still get to do your action. Second, even if it's not your spot you land on, you still have the standard actions as choices to do.
Just get money if you have nothing else to do.
But then the game is smart enough to punish you if you're coasting too much. So like if you reach Kansas City and you haven't really been making an effort for better cows, you'll only deliver to the closest city. And that's negative points at the end of the game.
Which is Kansas City. You're allowed to deliver to each other city once, except for the lowest and the highest. So yeah, if you keep having a low hand of cows when you get there, which determines the distance that you can travel deliver to, you will run out of cities to deliver to, and that's a problem.
But even if you have super, super beautiful numbers for cows, if you haven't been working on your train,
then you're gonna pay through the nose every time you ship your cows.
Because it's like you're paying toll gates to deliver it beyond your normal reach. So it's such a nicely balanced, intricate game. But in as much as it sounds like it's overwhelming, it's not once you're playing.
Yeah, in our experience, it's definitely not an easy game. It's definitely a moderate game, but it's easy to teach, I feel, and
people tend to get it after their first rotation.
Yes, once they have gotten from the start of the map all the way to Kansas City and shipped their first batch of cows, by then I'm pretty sure you know how to play. And then there is also the element of it's actually quite fast.
Yes,
as far as a game like this goes. The time will just breeze by, and then suddenly you're at the end of the hiring board, and then oh crap, the game's gonna end. And as long as someone, hires people, the game's gonna end. So what can you do?
So Pico asked, do you have to go back after selling the cows at the end of the line? So
yeah, if you restart.
So if we're talking about your path through the map, then yes, you go back to the start because you will go through the journey again, which is an interesting system because then you're familiar with the landscape. So you kind of have plans of how you'll do it again.
Yes.
But the draw of what cows you have in your hand and what new buildings other players have built can mess up your plans.
Yes.
More so when you realize that most routes have two options. So for example, in this basic area here from the starting line, you are able to take the top line, which tends to be the houses of other players. Or you could risk this lower line that might end up be blocked by flooding hazards. And sometimes, just to spite other players, you'd go through the flooding because you'd rather pay the game than the other player. Other times...
Because I don't want to pay Toby.
Other times, you'd happily build in those areas where the hazards are Because by having a building there, and you'll notice the slot here, there are small bonus additional actions you can avail of. And those actions are huge because if everyone's doing an action each time they have a turn, you're sort of doing two.
And that's kind of awesome. But of course, that second action depends on if you have the right cow to throw away.
Yes.
So it gives extra value to the one cows, but then you have to really balance out your hand.
So it's an interesting way of it's an interesting way in the sense how the game was built that the intricate systems teach you the other things you need to know while you're playing.
Yeah. It's really that once you get a good grasp of the symbols and you see there are a fair number of them, I must admit, but they are very consistent across the player board, the main board, the goal cards, and the like, and that really works out, and you'll get it. You'll get it. That's why once you have traveled, brought your cows to Kansas once, I think you're gonna get it. Maya's accusing me of getting early spots. No, I just build when I can.
Oh, that's because the spots themselves matter. Other than creating choke points that force players to take other routes, there are areas where there are trees.
Yes.
And certain buildings benefit from being built in those areas with trees.
Or some buildings give you a bonus move. So it's
Yes.
nice to chain stuff that I'll start at my building, then it kicks me to the bonus building.
That allow basically if you play it right, you might end up jumping between three of your buildings before the turn ends.
Yeah, so you'll have like 3 different actions. That's awesome.
So, quick tips.
You will focus on something for strategy, but you will need to balance a bit. So you can't not ever buy any cows, I feel. Or you will have to get a few engineers to move your trains faster. You will maybe build at least a few buildings, and then focus on something else beyond that. But then don't. I feel like in terms of like when people who win the game balance things to some degree.
Yes.
Don't ignore goals, especially if you are already collecting hazards and TPs. You might as well get a goal that gives them value, because otherwise they're not worth anything unless you get the particular train station. Deny Toby as many stations as you can. Toby will always try to get the stations. You need to stop that. Even if it will wipe you out and prevent you from buying cows, stop Toby.
I just like putting my people in the stations. Well, that's because by placing people in the stations, you can trigger again those slots when you buy new people. So find ways to make those small combos. Do not be afraid of the moves that cost you money, like these, because sometimes they might allow you to strategically position yourself by delaying your movement further so others don't get to leapfrog above you, and so on and so forth.
Oh, except that you might not unlock every spot on your player board.
Yes.
So you must prioritize. What do you need the most for the way you are playing the game today? So if you're doing a railroad game, then you may want to make sure you unlock the train-related actions.
Yeah, those are these in the bottom.
Yeah, or if you are playing a heavy cow game, then you're going to want the one that lets you discard trade cards quickly.
And give yourself more ribbons to spend.
Yes. So more pennants, more points, better cows. Moo, moo, moo.
Pay attention to the yellow and black slots. Well, the white and black slots.
White and black.
So like here we have all these white slots here, and then here notice in the movement there's those black slots there. Because that's key to what cities you are delivering to.
You can only unlock those spots if you're delivering to a city of the appropriate color.
And you can only deliver to cities that your numbers reach. So if you've already unlocked the first few dark slots, you'll realize that the next ones will really, 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 really need higher numbers of cows. So you have to really time things correctly. What else? Do not be afraid to build buildings just for the sake of building over them later on.
Yes, there's a weird upgrade thing where like you can, because you're limited by the number of carpenters you have in terms of what buildings you can build. So a level 2 building means you have at least 2 carpenters. But you could stack another level 2 building on a level 2 building. I could stack a level 4 building on a level 2, and just use your same two carpenters to build it. You will lose the previous building, but
It's worth it in the end.
and the building tiles points jump in the later ones. Suddenly they're at the first they're like worth 1 or 2 points, and then later they're worth 10, 15. And like, ooh, you may want to build the bigger buildings.
And then I guess my last one would be pay attention to the mission cards you've gained, or the gold cards you gained during the game. The fact that they're shuffled into your hand, into your deck, means if you forget,
Same card back.
if you forget which ones
Cow.
you have, or worse, if you forget if you've hit them, then you might be grabbing things you don't need, or you might be grabbing the wrong things. Like there's a goal for having a 3, a 4, and a 5 cow, and if you've been focusing on just getting the 5 cows and forgetting to get a 3 and a 4, then you'll mess yourself up. Even worse is the fact that goals are, I don't know what the word for it is, but when you use something to fulfill that goal, you can't use those to fulfill another goal.
Yes. So there's a distinct allocation of buildings and such to the goals that are appropriate. So be careful.
Adrian mentions, it sounds like a game I'll need to play more than once to get the hang of. I think all games are like that. I mean, if it's a game that you'll need to play more than once to understand, no. You'll get it in the first round or the first 2 rounds.
Oh wow, yeah, we haven't played Great Western Trail with Adrian. I was double checking just
Yeah,
now.
we haven't had a chance. We've mostly been playing Seafall.
Yes.
But after you've played your first game with it, your mind will be racing with strategies and techniques you'll want to try. And that's where it becomes interesting, because each time now you play, you'll be frustrated with trying to see if what you want to see will work. Any last thoughts?
Moo. Great
Why
Western
moo?
Trail. Because it has cows. Why cows? Cow. 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 I like cows.
Cow.
That's not a cow. Yeah, so Great Western Trail. Somehow they made cow deck building fun and stuff and moving cows. And I did not realize I'd be this fascinated about the journey of a cow across this period of American history. So yay. And of course, train stations.
I'm afraid there is no app version of it yet. However,
It's tricky to app this.
yeah, but there is an online
Automata.
that allows you to play it solo if you ever choose to find and buy the game and play it solo. I do wonder how easy it is to find nowadays.
But the game itself does not have a solo mode, right?
yes,
Okay,
the
it
Automata
is
allows
minimum
you to play it as solo.
Okay.
So yeah, so hopefully you will find it. And as Andre says, cows kill more people than sharks.
Cow, 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 cow. Okay, so yeah.
That was 30 minutes. We hope you had a lot of fun, and we hope you will join us again next time.
Oops, I lost the tab. Okay, there. And then if you have questions or suggestions for future Baduy Pride episodes, fill out the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, all Toby No Shade. I'm RG Sunico.
You can also check out our blog, that's baduypride.com, for more of our previous episodes. And you can see if we have more of a cow fascination there by digging through the other past posts.
We do not, I think. Okay. Yeah, so feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. What do you think about what you heard about Great Western Trail? Have you played it? Do you want to play it? Do you like deck building cows? Be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride.
We did not plan that.
Okay.